Hello class, so I want to demonstrate how to properly put together and assemble the tripod in auto level. So first we're going to start with this tripod. I want to point out that this tripod can be used with auto levels. It can also be used with total stations, and later this semester I'll be using the same tripod to set up our our total station as well. So first, to set this up, you simply unclip it at the bottom so these legs can be spread out. Each individual leg can also be extended to a pretty long length. However, we're not going to use the full length. So I'm going to extend these out about a foot, tighten them down, and I'll actually put it on the ground so I can lengthen them all the same amount. I want to point out that the length that you extend the legs to is typically of no consequence. I like to extend mine a little longer because I'm tall, helps me be able to access my equipment easier. But obviously if you're short, you don't have to make it as long. But on the subject of lengthening these legs, having different leg lengths is also vital if you're on unlevel ground. If this side of the tripod is higher up and this side's low, you can extend a single leg longer in order to account for that. So first, when we set up the tripod, we want to set up these legs so it's easily accessible. We're not going to trip over them. We also don't want to make them too narrow, because if so, it makes it top heavy and easy to push over. If you're working in actual ground, you can use these steps to shove this down into the dirt. However, since my backyard is turf, we're going to avoid doing that to avoid putting holes in our turf. But do know that typically you would push these down into make this stationary and not move. So now that this is set up, and I think that's pretty level, we're going to go ahead and put the auto level itself on there. So this is an auto level. You can see that it looks a lot like a telescope or like a rifle scope. And it's working on the same exact principles. You got your seeing eyepiece here, you've got your lens out here. One of these rods, this one down here, rotates the actual seeing glass on the pedestal, while this one is the focus. So all we do is, on the bottom, there's a hole, and on this tripod there is a screw down here that can be used to either screw in this auto level or a turning station. So we'll simply place that on here. Screw it in tight so it doesn't go anywhere. And then if we take a look here, we'll see that we have a bubble level that we want to get as accurately level as possible. Otherwise, this entire thing is useless. And that's done by manipulating these three knobs, and it will level this thing as I change it. So rotating these knobs will either raise or lower that portion. And if we keep an eye on this, you'll see that as I move these, the bubble moves. And we basically want to get it directly in there. If you look straight here, there's a little mirror, so I can easily turn and look and see exactly how level it is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look real quick. Got it pretty close already, so let's just tighten this thing up. And now it's level. Now, no matter which way I spin this, it should stay level. And we can see that it does. No matter how I spin it, it'll move, but then it will come back to level. So once this thing is set up, what we would do is we'd have our Philly rod, which I'll discuss in a different video. And the person with the Philly rod would walk whatever distance is necessary, whether that's 20 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet. And they would stand there with the Philly rod as level upright as possible. Once done, you would take this, point it at it, you would look through, we'd focus it in, and we would simply see where do the crosshairs align on the Philly rod. Wherever that crosshair hits, that's our elevation for that point, because the Philly rod starts at 0 on ground and continues up. That would be our elevation 1. Specifically for the pec test, we would aim this direction, we'd get our first measurement. The person over there would come over here, the same distance that direction. I would spin this around. I would do the exact same thing. Get a secondary elevation measurement. And these would be my E1, my E2. I would subtract these two to get my delta E, and that would be our first delta E for the pec test. After we've done this, we would take the tripod, the whole system, we'd pick it up and we'd move it over to the other peg station. We would repeat both those measurements, and then a third time we'd go to the third setup, and we'd set this up one more time, and we'd once again get elevation measurements. Note, if you pick this thing up at all, you have to re-level it. If this thing is moved in any way at all, you have to re-level it. It's extraordinarily important that this thing gets re-leveled every time it is moved, and that we're constantly verifying the level of this. If this thing is off by only a little bit, it can greatly affect your measurements, because remember, the further away something is, the larger your error will be if this thing isn't level.